Am I looking up Larry Appleton?
Larry Appleton, that's me.
Perfect Strangers first aired in the year 1986, and it quickly became one of the most memorable sitcoms of its time. The show followed Larry Appleton and his distant cousin Balki Bartokomous as they navigated life together in Chicago, bringing viewers plenty of laughs through culture clashes, misunderstandings, and heartfelt moments. Apart from the comedy, the series also left behind some unusual stories that many fans may not be aware of. Here are 20 of those facts for you to enjoy. Number 20. No complete US DVD release. Unlike many sitcoms from the 1980s and 1990s that have been packaged and released as full collections, only the first and second seasons of Perfect Strangers were released on DVD, and ever since then, the releases have suddenly stopped. This left fans confused and in a state of dilemma, because the show ran for 8 full seasons, making it strange that the rest was never made available. The situation is even more surprising and confusing because Perfect Strangers is known to have played an important role in ABC's lineup and even gave birth to the spin-off show Family Matters, which received a complete release. It was expected that if a spin-off could get the full treatment, then the original show should also get the same treatment. Over the years, online petitions, fan requests, and message boards have been filled with people asking Warner Brothers and other distributors to complete the set. For this reason, watching the complete Perfect Strangers show in full today is not easy. Only a few episodes have appeared on streaming services, while others remain locked away, with fans wondering when they might get to see them. Some international regions have successfully managed to get more episodes released for fans than the US, which makes the American situation even more frustrating for its fans. For a show that ran for 150 episodes and was a big part of ABC's TGIF history, the lack of a full DVD release is one of the strangest facts about it. Number 19. International title changes. Perfect Strangers did not always go by the same name in every country where the show was shown. When the sitcom was exported to the international markets, some distributors changed the title to highlight Balki's character, instead of sticking with the phrase Perfect Strangers. It was confirmed that this was done because many foreign audiences instantly connected with Balki's unusual accent, mannerisms, and charm, and the networks thought it would be a good idea to market the show if his name or identity were at the center. For example, in some European countries, the title was changed to something that looked like this: Balki and Larry. At the same time, some other regions were known to have promoted it under names that focused directly on Balki's homeland or outsider status. This suggests that the show was received differently in other countries, where the focus was intended to be on two men from different backgrounds trying to coexist. The decision to switch titles was a creative marketing move aimed at making the sitcom more appealing to local viewers. This fact stands out because not every American show needed a title change overseas for the local audience, but Perfect Strangers often did. It also shows how Balki quickly became the face of the series outside the United States, overshadowing Larry in popularity, despite being portrayed as equals in the show. The title changes in international markets prove how Balki's unique personality and comic style carried the show, and how networks outside the US were willing to reshape the series' branding just to play up his character. Number 18. Part of the legendary TGIF lineup. This fact has to do with Perfect Strangers becoming a major part of ABC's famous TGIF Friday night lineup. When the network first created TGIF in the late 1980s, they wanted a list of family-friendly shows that viewers of all ages could sit down and watch together. Perfect Strangers was one of the earliest shows in that lineup, airing alongside other classics like Full House, Family Matters, and later Step by Step. This gave the sitcom a strong place in television history because being part of ABS's TGIF lineup meant millions of households were regularly watching. The TGIF lineup quickly became a regular thing in many homes, and Perfect Strangers was one of the many shows that helped set the tone for what that list of programming was supposed to feel like. It was a funny, wholesome film with a simple storyline about friendship and family values. Even though the humor of the show often came from Balki's misunderstandings of American culture, the episodes were safe for kids to watch. At the same time, they remained entertaining for adults, which is exactly what ABC wanted for the lineup. Being part of the TGIF list gave Perfect Strangers more exposure, and it also helped secure its long run of 8 seasons. Many of the show's fans who grew up in the 1980s and 90s have commented about how they remember watching the show as part of their Friday night routine, which is why it remains firmly tied to the nostalgia of that era. Without Perfect Strangers, the TGIF lineup may not have taken off the way it did, since the show served as one of its top shows in the early years. Number 17. Larry and Balki were almost college students. The original plan for Perfect Strangers was to make Larry and Balki college students instead of adult roommates. According to producers, early drafts of the show had the two characters living in a dorm and experiencing cultural clashes on campus. The whole idea for the show was that Balki would be the foreign exchange student, while Larry would be his American roommate. The writers also noted that they thought this setup would provide plenty of funny situations, but they later felt it would limit the kinds of stories they could tell. The producers also noted that they eventually changed the setting to Chicago and made Larry a young man trying to build his career, while Balki came to live with him as a distant cousin from Mypos. This decision, they say, opened the door for broader storylines, such as work life, dating, and adult responsibilities, while making it okay for kids to watch. It also made the comedy appeal to a broader audience, not just younger viewers who could relate to student life. By shifting the characters into adulthood, the writers gave the show more flexibility to grow across multiple seasons. According to the filmmakers, this change is important because if the show had stuck with the college student idea, it might not have lasted as long as it did through the 8 seasons. The sitcom also explored other aspects, such as workplace humor, family themes, and adult challenges, all of which became central to the show's charm. Making Larry and Balki adults instead of students turned out to be the right move in the end, and it is one of the reasons Perfect Strangers could run for 8 seasons and remain relevant to both younger and older viewers. Number 16. Fans still perform. The Dance of Joy. The Dance of Joy, which was created by Balki and Larry on the show, became such a popular moment that some of the show's fans still perform it today. The dance started as a silly, spontaneous celebration between the two characters whenever something good happened to either of them. It involved jumping, clapping, spinning, and ending with Larry being lifted into the air. Even though the show was just a comedy bit, the routine quickly became one of the most recognizable parts of the series. Over time, the Dance of Joy took on a life of its own outside of the show. Cast members have mentioned in interviews that fans often come up to them and either request the dance or start performing it in front of them. Bronson Pinchot has also said in interviews that even decades after the show ended, people still remember the steps and repeat them at conventions or fan gatherings, especially when they meet him. The fact that a simple dance routine stayed in people's memories for so long shows how much of an impact it had. The Dance of Joy also became a pop culture reference in its own right. Other television shows and comedians are known to have parodied it, and it is often included in highlight reels of memorable sitcom moments from the 1980s. While the dance is known to have started as a joke between two major characters, it ended up becoming a symbol of the show's humor and friendship. To this day, it remains one of the weirdest yet most beloved legacies of Perfect Strangers. Number 15. 8 seasons and 150 episodes. This was a remarkable achievement for a show that was made in the 1980s and 90s, especially since many shows during that time struggled to survive more than a couple of years. The long run of the show showed that the audience stayed loyal to Larry and Balki's story, and that the network considered it to be a strong performer for Friday nights. Reaching 8 seasons also allowed the writers to experiment with different kinds of stories within the show. In the early years of the show, the episodes focused heavily on Balki adjusting daily to life in America and Larry's constant frustrations. Later, the show's seasons expanded into more family and work-related themes to symbolize growth, including both characters finding long-term relationships and dealing with adult responsibilities. This growth kept the show fresh while maintaining the core comedy of the mismatched cousins. Having 150 episodes also meant that the show reached syndication, which helped it remain visible to new viewers even after its original run ended. The show's reruns kept Perfect Strangers alive for years on cable and local stations, introducing the comedy to people who missed it the first time. While it is not as widely rerun today as some of its TGIF partners, the sheer number of episodes gave the show staying power and cemented its place as one of ABC's most successful sitcoms of that era. Number 14, Balki's goat, Dimitri, became a fan favorite. This fact brings us to Balki's stuffed goat named Dimitri and how it became one of the strangest but most beloved running gags on the show. At first, Dimitri was just a simple prop that Balki treated as his pet, constantly carrying it around as if it were real. The way he also talked to Dimitri and gave it human-like qualities made it a hilarious part of many episodes. Instead of Dimitri being a one-time joke, the writers noted how they noticed how much the audience reacted and decided to bring Dimitri back again and again. Over the seasons, Dimitri became like a silent side character, as he often appeared in different costumes, and Balki would use him as a part of his conversations, sometimes asking for his advice or referring to him as if he understood everything. The gag worked well because of Balki's innocence and sincerity at the same time. He never treated Dimitri as a toy, and Larry often rolled his eyes while the audience laughed. This small prop ended up being one of the show's weirdest but most consistent jokes. What makes this fact even more interesting is that the filmmakers noted that Dimitri began receiving fan mail. Some viewers wrote letters that were directly addressed to the goat, which showed how much people loved the character despite knowing that it was an inanimate object. For a sitcom to have a stuffed animal become that memorable is unusual, but it added to the unique charm of Perfect Strangers. Number 13, Mark Linn-Baker's Broadway background. This talks about the fact that before playing Larry Appleton on Perfect Strangers, Mark Linn-Baker was already known as an established stage actor on Broadway. He had built a strong reputation for himself in theater, appearing in productions like Doonesbury the Musical and working with respected directors. His background in live performance provided him with solid comedic timing and the ability to handle physical humor, which proved crucial for his role as Larry. Unlike many sitcom actors who were mainly known for their presence on television, Linn-Baker brought in polished stage experience. This theater training helped him balance well with Bronson Pinchot's portrayal of Balki. While Balki's character was loud, physical, and unpredictable, Larry's character was more grounded and relied on his expressions of frustration and straight-man reactions. Linn-Baker's stage skills allowed him to keep a straight face and deliver sharp responses while constantly matching the energy of his co-star. This dynamic made their chemistry believable and kept the comedy flowing naturally. Another interesting detail is that Linn-Baker continued to return to the stage even while working on the sitcom. His connection to theater remained strong throughout his career, and after Perfect Strangers, he was known to have appeared in several stage productions and guest roles on television. Knowing that one half of the show's leading duo came from a serious Broadway background makes it even more impressive because of how well he adapted to a sitcom format that he was unfamiliar with and became part of one of the most memorable TV pairings of the era. Number 12. Pinchot never stayed in character off-camera. Bronson Pinchot, who played Balki, never used method acting to stay in character when the cameras stopped rolling. Unlike some actors at the time who were known to live as their characters during filming, Pinchot preferred to switch the role on and off. He often explained in interviews that playing the role of Balki was something he could easily step into, but when a scene ended, he would return to being himself right away. This approach helped him keep the role fun. This fact is unusual because Balki is known to be a unique character who is full of energy. Many fans were known to have assumed that Pinchot might have carried some of Balki's quirks into his real personality, but he made it clear during interviews that it was all just part of the job. On set, he was a professional who could instantly turn on his accent and mannerisms, but as soon as the director called cut, he dropped his role and became himself. For a character as exaggerated as Balki, it showed just how skilled Pinchot was at acting. His choice not to constantly stay in character also helped his co-star, Linn-Baker. Since Pinchot wasn't constantly being Balki, the two could easily focus on rehearsals, planning physical comedy, and discussing timing as themselves. It also made life easier for the crew because, according to them, working with someone who was always in character can sometimes be difficult. This shows that even though Balki felt real to the show's fans and audience, Pinchot treated the performance like a switch, something he could turn on perfectly whenever the scene required it. Number 11. Iconic Theme Song by David Pomeranz.
Sometimes the world looks perfect.
The theme song of Perfect Strangers, titled "Nothing's Gonna Stop Me Now," was performed by singer and songwriter David Pomeranz. The song was played at the start of every episode, and it quickly became one of the most recognizable TV themes of the 1980s. It had an upbeat sound with hopeful lyrics that perfectly matched the show's tone, where two very different cousins chased their dreams and learned about life in America together. What makes this fact stand out is how the theme song easily became as memorable as the show itself. Many viewers from that time have noted how they still remember the melody and can sing along to the song word for word, even to this day. The theme song created a sense of excitement before every episode and gave the show positive energy. This was important because television theme songs at the time often served as a hook that was meant to draw viewers in, and Perfect Strangers had one of the strongest examples of that era. David Pomeranz was already respected as a musician at the time, but the connection to Perfect Strangers gave him a permanent place as an elite in TV history. The song has been included in several best sitcom themes lists and continues to be mentioned when people talk about nostalgic television. Even fans who may not remember every detail of the series because of how long it has been often remember "Nothing's Gonna Stop Me Now," proving just how much impact a good theme song can have on a sitcom's success. Number 10. Directly spawned Family Matters. You probably didn't know that Perfect Strangers was directly responsible for the creation of the popular sitcom Family Matters. Yes, the connection between the two shows came through the character Harriet Winslow, played by Jo Marie Payton. She first appeared on Perfect Strangers as an elevator operator in the building where Larry and Balki worked. Her role was small at first, but she played it well enough for the producers to decide to make a new show that would be centered around her and her family. This spin-off show became Family Matters, which went on to run for 9 seasons and make television history with the character Steve Urkel. This was a show that started as a side role on Perfect Strangers, but ended up turning into one of the most successful family sitcoms of the 1990s. Maybe if Harriet hadn't appeared early on Perfect Strangers, Family Matters may never have existed, which makes this fact one of the strangest and most important pieces of television trivia. It is very unusual for a background character on one show to be the reason for a completely new series, but that is exactly what happened here. While Perfect Strangers was popular in its own right, the success of Family Matters showed how much of an impact a single character could have. This connection also ties the two shows together forever in the minds of fans who were stuck with both shows to the end, making Perfect Strangers not just a comedy about Balki and Larry, but also the starting point of another beloved series. Number 9. It surprised everyone with early rating success. Perfect Strangers became a surprise global hit when it first aired in 1986. At the time, ABC was known to be struggling with its sitcom lineup and did not expect the show about two mismatched cousins to perform as strongly as it did. The network noted that they saw it as a smaller project, but audiences quickly connected with Balki's innocence, Larry's frustration, and the odd but charming relationship between both of them. Ratings climbed faster than expected, and the show proved it could compete with bigger productions at the time. The success of the show was astounding because neither of the lead actors was a household name when the show started. Yes, Bronson Pinchot was probably known for his small role in Beverly Hills Cop, while Linn-Baker had more of a theater background. Despite the differences between them in terms of professionalism, the chemistry between the two made the show stand out from other sitcoms of the time. Viewers enjoyed the mix of physical comedy, culture clashes, and the warm-hearted themes of friendship and family. As a result of the unexpected ratings success, ABC gave the show a prime spot in its weekly schedule and invested more in promoting it above others at the time. This early boost helped the series last for 8 seasons, resulting in 150 episodes, which no one at the network could have predicted. What started as a simple sitcom idea ended up being one of ABC's most reliable hits during the late 1980s and early 90s, which also proves that sometimes underdog shows can outshine expectations. Number 8. Cast members struggled to stay in character. It has been confirmed that the cast members of Perfect Strangers, especially Bronson Pinchot and Mark Linn-Baker, often had trouble staying in character during filming because of how funny the scenes they were playing became. Pinchot's delivery as Balki, with his odd accent, unusual sayings, and unpredictable movements, would sometimes catch his co-star off guard. According to the producers, there were moments when Linn-Baker could not keep a straight face because of how Bronson Pinchot caught him off guard, and scenes had to be reshot because the laughter broke through. This was not limited to just the two leads alone. Supporting cast members and even the studio audience noted how they would sometimes laugh so hard that filming had to pause for everyone to collect themselves. The physical comedy, which included exaggerated gestures, slapstick humor, and awkward situations, made the show stand out from other sitcoms. Still, it also made it harder for the actors to control themselves while playing their roles. Footage from behind the scenes that was released and cast interviews often reveal that bloopers were a common part of the production process. These constant breaks during production due to the characters showed just how much fun the actors were having on set while they played their roles. Instead of it being a problem, the laughter added to the show's warm reputation and family-friendly atmosphere. Fans have noted that part of what made Perfect Strangers so enjoyable was how natural the humor felt, and that energy came from the fact that even the actors themselves sometimes found the scenes too funny to handle. Number 7. Balki was almost Greek instead. In the early stages of development, the producers of the show originally planned for Balki to come from Greece instead of the fictional island of Mypos. Yes, you heard right. The idea was that a Greek immigrant would provide plenty of opportunities for cultural humor, as Greek customs were quite different from American life, yet still recognizable to audiences. Early scripts and character notes that were revealed even described Balki with a background that matched real Greek traditions. The producers noted that they realized tying the character to an actual country might limit their creative freedom. If Balki came from Greece, they would have to adhere closely to the authentic cultural details of Greece, and there was a risk of offending people if they made mistakes or exaggerated certain traits. So to avoid these problems, they invented the island of Mypos, which was an entirely fictional homeland where the writers could make up customs, sayings, and traditions without restrictions or the possibility of offending anyone. This gave the show more freedom to play with the character. This decision to create a fictional place as Balki's place ended up being one of the smartest creative moves for Perfect Strangers. Mypos became a running joke without offending anyone throughout the series, with Balki often telling strange stories about his life there, involving goats, odd holidays, or unusual traditions. It was all made up so the writers could push the comedy as far as they wanted, and the show's audience loved it. Changing Balki from Greek to Myposian gave the character his unique charm, and it made the show stand out from other sitcoms of its time. Number 6. The homeland of Mypos was completely fictional. This might be shocking, but Balki's homeland, Mypos, was not a real country. As mentioned before, it was a completely fictional creation. The writers of the show designed it as a tiny Mediterranean island with its own strange customs, sayings, and traditions. By making up the country, they gave themselves total freedom to invent details that would fit the comedy of the show without having to offend anyone. Mypos quickly became part of Balki's charm, since every time he mentioned it, he had a funny story or unusual fact to share. Throughout the series, Balki often told Larry about Mypos in ways that made the audience laugh. He spoke about growing up with goats, following odd family rules, and celebrating holidays that no one in America had ever heard of. Hilarious, right? These stories consistently contributed to the culture clash between him and Larry, and they also created a running joke about the place that the show's fans looked forward to. The more ridiculous my pose sounded, the more audiences enjoyed hearing about it. The decision to invent a fictional homeland also protected the show from criticism, as it would have been perceived differently if Balki had come from a real country, and some viewers might have taken offense at how the culture was portrayed. By making my pose a place that did not exist, the writers could exaggerate traditions without worry or fear of criticism, and use Balki's stories purely for laughs. This strange but clever idea gave the sitcom one of its most memorable features and made Balki's background truly one of a kind. Number 5. Bronson Pinchot almost turned down the role. You might not believe this, but Bronson Pinchot nearly rejected the role of Balki on Perfect Strangers. This is because at the time he was offered the part, he had just finished filming Beverly Hills Cop, where his small role as Serge had caught people's attention. As a result, Pinchot was suddenly getting more offers in Hollywood, and he noted that he was worried about being tied down to a television sitcom. This is understandable because for an actor who was trying to grow his career in movies, committing to a weekly series seemed like a risk. The producers of Perfect Strangers noted that they believed Pinchot was the perfect fit for the role. They also pushed hard in trying to convince him, and after some thought, he finally agreed to join the project. This turned out to be a decision that defined his career, since Balki became one of the most popular characters on television in the late 1980s. The part gave Pinchot worldwide recognition and established him as a TV comedy actor. Looking back, it seems strange that Pinchot considered turning down the role that would make him famous. There is the possibility that without him, Perfect Strangers might not have worked at all, since so much of the show's charm came from his performance as Balki. His hesitation shows how uncertain Hollywood careers can be, but in the end, taking the role of playing the role was the right move. It gave him steady work for years and created one of the most memorable sitcom characters of the era. Number 4. The Dance of Joy was improvised. The famous Dance of Joy was not part of the original script. Yes, you heard right. It was improvised by Bronson Pinchot and Mark Linn-Baker. According to the producers, the dance first appeared when the two actors playing a lighthearted moment scene decided to celebrate in a silly way during rehearsal. The producers liked it so much that they allowed it to be included in the episode. The dance itself was a mix of jumping, clapping, spinning, and lifting, ending with Larry being carried into the air. It came out of improvisation, so it always looked natural, as if it were something the cousins would really do in the moment. Number 3. The original pitch was set in New York. As strange as it sounds, the first version of Perfect Strangers was not meant to take place in Chicago, but in New York City. When the show was being developed, the producers imagined Balki arriving in New York to live with his cousin in a crowded apartment. The city's busy lifestyle and diverse culture were thought to be the perfect backdrop for the comedy. Early drafts of the script, which were revealed, placed the characters in that setting before the idea was changed. The producers later decided to move the show to Chicago because they felt New York was already overused in sitcoms. They also added that Chicago offered a fresh location that still represented a big city with plenty of opportunities for stories about work, relationships, and adjusting to American life. This location change is known to have helped the show stand out, since fewer sitcoms at the time were based in Chicago. It also became an important part of the show's identity and gave it a different feel compared to the original plan. Number 2. Balki's accent came from a clothing store job. This might sound funny, but Bronson Pinchot first came up with the unusual accent he used for Balki while he was working at a clothing store before he became famous. Weird, right? During that time, he noted that he would amuse himself and co-workers by creating odd voices and pretending to be a foreigner. One of those voices he made stuck with him and later became the foundation for Balki's famous accent. The accent was never meant to represent a specific real country, which is why it sounded so unusual and challenging to place. When Pinchot was cast in Perfect Strangers, he decided to bring that accent along with him and use it for the character. The producers loved how original it sounded and encouraged him to keep it. Instead of tying Balki to a real nationality, they built the fictional island of Mypos around the accent, which made the show unique. Imagine a made-up accent and a made-up island. Pinchot's ability to deliver lines with that exaggerated tone made Balki instantly funny and memorable to audiences. The strange origin of the accent makes it one of the oddest facts about the show because it was something Pinchot had used just for fun while working a regular job, but it ended up shaping one of television's most beloved characters. Fans often tried to imitate the accent themselves, but it was Pinchot's delivery and timing that really made it work. Without that playful moment years earlier in a clothing store, Balki might never have had the voice that made him so iconic. Number 1. The show inspired other TGIF sitcoms. Finally, fact number 1 tells us that Perfect Strangers played a huge role in shaping ABC's famous TGIF lineup. When the show became popular in the late 1980s, ABC executives saw how well families connected with its lighthearted humor and heartwarming themes, especially with the high ratings it got after its first run. This success encouraged them to build other sitcoms with the same friendly tone, creating a block of shows that would air together on Friday nights. The legacy of Perfect Strangers is bigger than just its own run of 8 seasons. It set the stage for an entire era of Friday night family programming on ABC, featuring different shows on the list, including Full House and Step by Step, which followed the same formula. Many fans, as well as producers, credit Perfect Strangers as the heart of the TGIF lineup, and without it, the 90s sitcom landscape would probably have looked very different. Its influence spread far beyond Balki and Larry, shaping the direction of television comedy for years. Are you a fan of Perfect Strangers? Which of these facts surprised you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more updates about your favorite TV show. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.